Well, hi there, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. I'm your host, Sharon Vornholt, and I'm so happy you're here today. I'm also really excited about my guest today, and that is Michelle Bosch. Michelle is the co-founder and CEO of Probate Investments. She's the co-creator of the nationally recognized Land Profits Generator program, which focuses on teaching others how to invest in land. But that's not all. She's a successful real estate investor who's passionate about helping women learn how to invest in land and apartments. Yeah. As if that weren't enough, Michelle's also a mom. She's a wife, and she hosts a podcast specifically for women called InFLOW. I have to tell you, I binge listened to some of Michelle's episodes over the weekend, and I'm a new fan. So welcome to the show, Michelle.
Oh, thank you so much, Sharon. Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor. I'm excited to be here.
You know, I'm excited. You've been featured on some pretty impressive platforms. I think I saw Inc., Fox, Forbes, ABC, NBC. There's probably too many to even mention. You had a pretty impressive resume, girl.
Thank you. It's not all mine. It's, I think I rest in the strength of an amazing partnership and collaboration of almost 18 years. I work together with my husband, and I think that has, we have complementary skills, and that has allowed us to really, rest in the strength of that, relationship, to really go out there and figure out this real estate, opportunity, one of the biggest opportunities out there, in my opinion, for a lot of people that are used to exchanging hours for dollars, and that, there's this whole new world of assets that can produce, the income to pay for your lifestyle. So yeah.
Well, it's exciting. So I know that you have an MBA in finance. So I have to ask you, you get this fancy degree, you get all educated. Did you just come out of there and go, I think I'll do real estate?
Okay. So let me tell you what happened there. So I'm originally from Honduras. I came as an immigrant to the US in 1995. My husband is also an immigrant from Germany. He came here in 1997. So a couple years later, we met in college, fell in love, decided that, we were going to try to find jobs here in the US, find companies that are willing to sponsor, our working visas, our green cards, and so on. And so we go to college, we graduate, and we do what everyone else does, which is to get a corporate job. And a few years into it, we absolutely hated it, but we couldn't let him go, because those were our tickets to a permanent residency here in the US. And so we're like, okay, we're miserable working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks for somebody else. We need to start doing something different. So we started looking, for side hustles, for things that we could do on the side. And I'm like, well, my family, back in Honduras, has done real estate in the past, and has done it really successfully, with rental, income properties. And why don't we, start looking into real estate? That's something that we could perhaps, start doing on the side. So we start looking into it, and we realized that getting into housing and flipping or rehabbing was something that was way beyond what we could do. And I think the unique situation that we were in was that, like I said, we were both immigrants. In Honduras, we built for hurricanes, completely different than you built here in the city of Phoenix, for example, where I now live, or even Chicago. Germany builds for incredibly harsh winters. And we just didn't have any experience when it, as far as like credit. It's not that we had bad credit; we just had no credit.
We just didn't have any. Yeah.
Fresh into the country, we didn't know how to deal with tenants. We didn't know how to deal with contractors, and so on and so forth. It seemed for us like a big barrier to entry to start in the housing. And so we stumbled into this niche that, in our opinion, is kind of like the simplification of real estate for us. And it's the land space. We found out, in the beginning, as we were researching real estate in general here in the US, that people can lose their properties to property taxes. Like if you don't pay your property taxes over a course of 2, 3, 4, 5 years, depends on the county, on the state, that property can either, that a tax lien could be sold against the property, or a tax deed where they actually auction off the property. So I attend an auction, and very quickly I realized, wow, this is competitive. This is not it. But what I do notice is that a lot of the properties that were coming up for auction were vacant pieces of land.
Mm-hmm.
And I figure, wow, if people have already been notified, they know that, over the last 3, 4, 5 years that they're going to lose their property. There's got to be a way to contact these people way in advance before the property goes to auction, where it's competitive, and everyone, it feels like a shark environment,
Yes.
Everyone knows each other.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows if shield bidding is going on, and it seems like they know the county officials and so on and so forth, and you're the newcomer there. So needless to say, I didn't win any bids. We had about $3,500 to our name, because even though we had jobs and we were getting paid well, we were living the quote unquote American dream, living paycheck to paycheck. We had payments on our car, literally on our bed, on our laundry, on our couch, on pretty much everything, on our house. And so we didn't have, when I went to that auction, we had about $3,500 worth of savings. So we're like, okay, that's not the way. But, we had that light bulb moment. I'm like, what if we contacted these people, earlier in advance? And as we started doing that, after much trial and error over a period of almost 2-3 years, we found out that actually, whether people were delinquent on property taxes or not, didn't matter, that we were still able to get, even on vacant land that didn't have any delinquency on taxes, they weren't behind on their taxes, that we could basically buy those properties for 5 to 25 cents on the dollar and sell them rather quickly for, 60 to 80% of market value.
Wow.
And we originally started selling them like quick wholesales, cash flips. I remember still our first one, we bought a piece of land up here in northern Arizona for about $600, and we were excited. We're staking, the piece of land. We're putting our for sale by owner sign, and all of a sudden the neighbor next door comes out and he's like, "Are you guys the owners?" And we're like, "Yeah." And he's like, "Well, I've been trying for years to contact the owners and I have not been successful, and I'd be interested in buying it." And because Jack's from Germany, where negotiation is not at the top of the list, and and it wasn't for me either, just we're like, "What would you like to offer?" And he offered us $4,000. For us, that meant a $3,400 spread. It wasn't a whole lot, Sharon, but it was something that was real. It was a big win in terms of it sculpting our spirit, sculpting our confidence, in that, wow, we're capable of doing this. This is actual real money in my bank account, even though it was only, $3,400. And that's kind of like, how we started and how we came, into land. And then eventually, we started selling them using seller financing, where basically if I say buy a property for $1,000 and I sell it for 10, somebody gives me a down payment for 2,000, and they continue making monthly payments. And with that, we've been able to pretty much make land cash flow, because people talk about land and they don't think that it can create cash flow. But that's kind of how we did it. And we also stumbled into that. Somebody said, "I cannot pay you the 10 grand, but would you take, $2,000 down?" And we're like, well, sure. My initial, investment into the property is back twice. So why not? And eventually we grew that in volume to the point where we were selling, up to 200 pieces of land in one day. We used to put up big, large land auctions.
Oh my gosh.
Here in the state of Arizona. We've sold now over the last 18 years about over 4,000 pieces of property.
Wow.
$70,000 of passive cash flow just from land notes. And that, land has been the cornerstone of our wealth creation vehicle. As we have grown as investors, we've kind of like moved on in asset classes. We still continue to do land, not in huge volumes. We're a little bit more, I think, focused now in looking for higher priced property. Because it takes the same amount of work to, work for a piece of land where I get a $15,000 spread to the kind of work that, for a $50,000 or $100,000 spread, and so on and so forth. So we continue doing it in much less volume. And we, in 2009, started looking into, transferring or allocating some of those cash profits from the land into housing. And we own a portfolio of single family homes. And then in 2016, again, as you grow and, in complexities, we then, started transitioning into multifamily. Now we own, 3 communities in 3 different markets. And it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of work. And it's been a lot of trial and error and finding that balance between, the creating wealth, which is the hard cash, the assets, and at the same time finding prosperity, which for me is about, making sure that I'm healthy, that I'm vital, that, that I'm there present for my family, that I am living, a purpose-driven life. So that, it's, finding that perfect balance between, just the hard cash wealth, creation point, and the and the prosperity, and bringing in, kind of like marrying those two worlds together. So.
Well, I think it's interesting that you kind of accidentally started investing in land, and it seems to be a theme that we kind of accidentally, we see something, we go, well, can I make that an opportunity? Because for the average investor, intellectually, that you could carry a note on land, or for me, though, I know houses. And most people say, okay, I've lived in a house, I know what a house is and all of that, but when it comes to land, intellectually, I know about how to do it, but it's like, who do you sell this? How do you find your buyers for land? Where do you find these people?
Yeah. So we specialize on 3 types of properties, and one is infill lots. And that can be, in the middle of the city, it doesn't have to be, out in the boonies stuff of property, but in infill lots, and they are most often our exit strategy or our buyer is a builder. Yeah?
Okay.
So we also look at the second type of property that we look at is properties in the outskirts of cities on the paths of growth. There as well, a builder is your exit, as well as people that want to have and buy, a piece of land either to retire on or as an investment opportunity because they know that that's something that's going to go up in value. And so on. And then the third type of property that we specialize is recreational property that is close to, to a lake, to fishing, to hunting. People that want to have, go camping, bring their RV or build, a little cabin, up north and escape, at least here in Arizona, the 115 degrees and go up north to where it's 90s, with beautiful ponderosa pines. Because believe it or not, you drive 2 hours north to Flagstaff, Arizona, and the vegetation, we go from saguaros to beautiful ponderosa pines. And so those are typically the types of buyers, and we used to find them on newspapers. We used to find them by advertising on newspapers. I've been doing this since for a while now. So back in the day, it wasn't there was no Facebook. Now Facebook Marketplace is hot. We sell on Craigslist. We sell on online auctions. We sell a buyer's list. Eventually, when you start, and you start finding those areas that you're going to harvest, that you're going to work certain counties, you will, more than likely have repeat buyers. And so those people start becoming, part of your buyer's list. And you start advertising, pay-per-click and so on. And then eventually, you have a piece of land, you feature it, you send a promotional email, and the property's gone.
That is so interesting. In a million years, I would have never thought of putting land on Facebook Marketplace.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And it's a different, to sell it requires a different little set of skills because you don't have a home to show, And
Mm-hmm.
you don't want to show just a piece of dirt. You have to dream build in your listing. You have to right away with the headline, show them and entice someone, that, this is what comparable properties are selling in the vicinity, but this is the deal that you're getting, 60% off market value on 2 acres of paradise in Northern Arizona. And so you got to get a little bit creative in terms of like dream building with them
Mm-hmm.
and creating a story, because who wants to buy just a piece of dirt? So you have to, sell a story and help people envision, a dream, for their piece of land.
Everything starts with a story, but I totally can see how that would come into play, because at the end of the day, whatever you're selling, you have to get people to buy into it. I love that though, dream building. That's
Yeah.
really cool. So you actually went straight into land. Most people, they'll say, well, I started with houses, didn't like that. I went over here and did commercial or whatever. So it's so interesting but then you kind of went to houses second. Is that right?
Yeah. For us, we needed something that, because we weren't from here, I think we didn't have even the terminology.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? We didn't have a lot of things that perhaps if we would have been born and raised here, we would have had going for us. So for us, the simplest, thing was like, okay, I get a piece of land. There's nothing to do with it. I don't need to write a check for a home inspection. I don't need to write a check for termites. I don't need to
Mm-hmm.
deal with, with toilets. I don't have to deal with a tenant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that simplicity is what really attracted us, in that we couldn't leave our jobs to go and run and meet, with a potential,
Contractors.
exactly. So I think it was, we were dealt a few cards and we made the most out of those cards that we were dealt with, you know what I mean? And that's why it was a natural thing for us to look for something very, very simple. And like I said, that very first deal was like real money in my bank account. It really sculpted our spirit. And like, we just need to put this, on steroids pretty much, and just like do this more. And as we did more and more deals, that repetition created mastery, and that mastery has turned now into, like, I feel like a PhD in making money. Somebody was asking me the other day, what would you do if you were to lose it all? Where would you start? And I'm like, I'd go back to my, to focusing and putting my blinders and exclusively focus on land.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I would, rebuild. And now with all the knowledge that I have about land, I wouldn't rebuild with $5,000, spreads, but I would be looking at the land that I'm looking right now, $50,000, $100,000, $150,000 split, spreads, where, my profits are, have several zeros at the end.
So you're talking about something big, like a shopping center would go on it, or an apartment community, or something?
Usually if it's in the outskirts of, of cities and the paths of growth, and selling to a builder, large tracts of land,
Mm-hmm.
or, and now probably even aggregating and subdividing, and so on and so forth, to capitalize and, do initial permitting for land, so that you can sell that. And now something that you perhaps bought for $30,000, if you do a lot of the groundwork, in terms of making it easier for a builder, you can easily sell that piece of land now for $200,000 versus a 30 that I bought it from, you know what I mean? And so the spreads are a little bit bigger versus those little deals of 5,000 and 10,000. But you got to start somewhere, I always say that you got to commit to one thing. There's so many things in real estate that you can do, in terms of making money, and you just need to find something that you can wrap your head around, like it was land for us, and then and kind of like focus on that and master it. Otherwise I feel like you're like when you go to Vegas and you're at the buffet line,
Yes.
and then the line next door looks like that food could be more attractive, and you change lines and you're in the back of the line again.
Mm-hmm.
And then you look next door and I'm like, oh, but the desserts look great, let me move over there, and you're at the back of the line again, and you really master nothing, and you have not gotten to the front of the line. So I would say find something, pick something, whatever it is, whether it be, probate investing with houses, or rehabbing, or note investing, or whatever it is. pick something and stick with it, commit to it, muster the courage to, if you've never done investing in the past, find yourself role models, invest in your education, and lean on those people, borrow some of their confidence, gain the capability, and with capability comes confidence to go ahead and go do it again, or go bigger projects, bigger deals, and so on and so forth. But I think it starts with just building your confidence with something that you can chew on,
Okay.
with something small and simple.
So you've been on a really big growth plan. I mean, people look and go, well, she's got a big business, but it's been over time. Did you know right from the beginning though, that you wanted to build a big business?
We did. So going back into my past, we eventually got our green cards.
Mm-hmm.
And when we got our green cards, we were already doing about, I would say, 60 to 80 deals a year, just as a side hustle.
Wow.
And then, we got our green card. We didn't have to travel 100% anymore. We let go, we put in like our 2 weeks notices, and we were doing this full time. And the following year, between Jack and myself, we were able to doing it full time, almost 150, 160 pieces of land.
Wow.
But we were again working 60, 70, 80-hour weeks. And we're like, well, we just replaced one job with another job. Yes, it's a better quality job because we're making way more money. You know what I mean?
But I'm still working myself to death.
But we're still working ourselves to death. So we either shrink or we grow. Mm-hmm. And we kind of like, had our backs against the wall as like, okay, we chose something, it's producing cash flow, but we're still not finding the joy. What's it going to be? Are we going to shrink or are we going to grow? And we went on expansion. That was a decision that we made, and we decided to bring on team to really make, 2 strategic investments into our business if we wanted to grow. And that was team, people, mm-hmm. and systems. We needed a CRM that could keep track, of all our transactions, our workflow. Eventually, we've developed our own proprietary one now that we use and that, we share with, our clients and students. And yeah, for us, it's like, okay, going back to small, it didn't feel right. We're like, no, we're just gonna go big or go home. And, and that's how, eventually we had, a team of almost, 15 people. And during auction days, we had about 100 people working for us, auctioneers, bid assistants, realtors, walking people through contracts and so on and so forth. And then, we shift and start, learning and becoming students of online marketing and so on and so forth, because we wanted to reduce the cost of, because it involved a lot of money putting up these auctions. Yeah. And advertising and getting 600 people into the Phoenix Convention Center here. It was no easy feat. So we're started, to learn how to market online and sell online and really reduce the cost, of selling a piece of property. And so yeah, I think we had, I think, also an immigrant advantage in that, at least for me, coming from a third world country, Jack comes from a first world country, mm-hmm. but he also came with a background where his father is, a high school teacher. Mm-hmm. Not necessarily, he also experienced financial hardship as he was growing up. The same for me. And so we had the hunger and the drive there, and we were not scared of hard work. So I think all of those things kind of like, you want to create a world better than the one that you left, mm-hmm. Helps you see the opportunities and seize them and work for them, and just not be scared of the work. There's no, what I've learned is that there's no shortcuts. If anything, in order to bring ease and grace is the team. The team has been so crucial in helping us basically really have the land be something, a business model that, because it's so simple, so many pieces can be delegated and outsourced, so that it's a model that still can put my family first. Now I have a 12-year-old, girl, a daughter, or we have it. She's not just mine. She's not just mine. And it's a model that it's simple. I can, it puts my family first, and with the help of team, I can really, get the support that I need, so that it really gives me freedom of money, freedom of time, freedom of relationships. We get to really bring on board and work with people that, share our same core values, and that have our same vision, our same drive, our same aspirations, that want to be engaged also in something that, brings them purpose and a bigger why. And so it really, every entrepreneur starts their businesses for those four freedoms. It's not just freedom of money, but it's also freedom of time, of purpose, of relationship, of something that brings you joy. And that's why even now, we share it with others. We started teaching this like about 9 or 10 years ago. And it was actually, that was something, it was a heart project, for my husband, Jack. He's like, this business has been so transformational at its core for us, having started with zero. It could really level the playing field for so many people out there that we're starting, in houses could be too much for them, And so, yeah, it's been a phenomenal ride, the cornerstone of finding wealth and prosperity. And yeah, I love dirt.
Well, I can tell that, don't you think that when you come from an entrepreneurial family, it's just kind of something you always think you're going to eventually do, even if you have a job? You mentioned that your family was in real estate.
Yeah.
So,
my father, when I was growing up, I was actually raised by my mother as a single mom. My father passed away when I was very young, but a few years before passing away, he was a lawyer back home. So he had a good profession, but it wasn't his profession what had kind of like kept us afloat. My mom was an elementary teacher, and especially in a third world country, that salary doesn't go very far. And it was that decision a couple of years later for him to invest, and actually sell some rural land that his family had, and invest in an income producing property in the city that really, supplemented, our income. And I could experience, I had experienced firsthand what it is to take care of someone, even though that person wasn't there. He was able to provide for us in some way financially, and so yeah, so I kind of knew about that, but that wasn't, I wasn't the one that had made the commitment to do it. I wasn't the one that had mustered the courage to go and invest in real estate. And, it was his. I was just a recipient. So I kind of had to build that for myself. And we did it, in the land space. Yeah.
I think it's just so interesting. I read something in your bio that just really caught my attention. It says, how can you transition from being a generator of results to becoming a creator of possibilities and financial freedom? So your team then is at the top of your list.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. There was a time, because I'm very process oriented, maybe it's a finance degree or whatever, very left brain, where all our focus was what and how, and process the heck out of everything. And we had, the team that perhaps didn't share our vision, that didn't share our mission, that didn't share values. And I had a lot of turnover headaches and HR issues. And so the moment that we started focusing on the who, on really building them, on making sure that they align, in our core value number one of taking bold action, of being integrity, of being excellence, of being transformational, of not doing something not just for the money, the moment that we started, really attracting and magnetizing that kind of team, it was a completely different ballgame. And we were able to really just move out from, the pure generation of results of us doing everything ourselves to having people help us. But also there's another aspect to that, Sharon, in that I think for me was very, very critical. Because of our complementary skills, I've always been the one in the background, systematizing, putting processes in place, and so on and so forth. The multiplier, of our business. And Jack has been kind of like the simplifier. He's the one that, he's like, well, land is simple. I can really wrap my hands around, we can really make this work in this simple way. And then how can I take that something simple and multiply it, like in the form of a land auction, and so on and so forth. But what I wanted to say is that I was working at some point a lot, even in the land business at the beginning, and setting structures and so on and so forth. And I was working from a point of view that required a lot of activity, action. Yeah. And I didn't it wasn't until like 2011 that I started incorporating, okay, there's times of activation where I can be the generator of results. But then I also need, to bring this prosperity and this balance, I also need times of integration, where I can have unscheduled days, have time to meditate, have time, to go outdoors and smell the coffee, and not have a day that is scheduled from 8 till 5 back to back. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so I started giving myself permission as an entrepreneur, to have that little bit of freedom and kind of like free time to let creativity kind of like pour into into myself, to let just ease, grace find me, and have periods of integration as well. And when I do have those periods, I schedule them so that I can really continue leading our team, leading our company, in producing more and more results in a, I don't want to say easier way, but in a way where you don't feel like it's forceful expansion, but more like a harmonious expansion,
Like,
I don't know if I made myself clear, but yeah.
No, I know exactly what you mean. People, you need to block out time to think. I think one of the hardest things about being in business is just what you said. Yeah. You don't have your team members, therefore you're trying to do everything. And even if you're outsourcing some things, you're juggling all the balls. Yeah. There's no time for you. And if you are a business owner, you have to have that time to just be. Yeah. That's when your ideas come and your aha moments come. And you, like you said, you'll just be maybe drinking coffee outside and you'll go, well, wait a minute, this great idea just came to me. Now that happens in the shower all the time.
It's like I call them like downloads, but it's like almost like little whispers from God, because where would that idea have come from? It must be from my mind being still right now, from having had time for prayer, for having had time, to walk in nature, to hear the birds, You need that. You need that integration time for sure.
You do. And I've read something interesting, and I wish I could remember where I read it exactly, but it said, it's kind of like before I turn out the light, I've got a Post-it note in there. It says, never go to bed without making a request of your subconscious. So maybe it is a way to find more grace in your day. Sometimes it's like, I've got this thing I just can't get off my mind. Help me to find a really good solution to that. Just to put that thought into your mind. And I'm trying to be really mindful of doing that every night, because your subconscious, and I know it'll go to work to find whatever you're thinking about. So you've got to really watch your thoughts for one thing. But another thing that I noticed that I really loved and I really believe in, it's something I'm trying to do personally in my life this year, is about simplifying. But you said simplify in order to multiply and create a stop doing list. And I absolutely love that. I sort of have one that I'm working on, but after listening, I told you I was binging on your shows. So, but I thought, gosh, she just put into words exactly what I've been trying to do, because I do believe that your physical workspace, it's who is it? Raymond Aaron wrote a book, and he said, get rid of your messes. They might be messes in your mind. They might be messes on your desk. They might be old file cabinets, but you can't create from that place of messes. So he always called everything messes.
Yeah.
But how did you first, I mean, it looks like you have an actual process, an annual or quarterly process for doing that.
Yeah. So yeah, we do actually as a company now we do it, and it originally started because, like I said, I was so bogged down with so many to-dos, that, I was burnt out back in 2011. I'm like, no, I need to start, finding my joy. What are the things that I absolutely love to do, and how can I continue to delegate, and continue to empower my team to do those things. And I just kind of like started with like a simple inventory of activities, throughout my week, and looking at my schedule. Well, I don't like doing that. I'm actually not no bueno at doing this, but I do it because there's no one else to do it, and so on and so forth. And slowly, trying to really hone in on the things that I'm really, really, really good at and that I actually enjoy, because there's some that I have a superior skill in my team, but I don't like doing them. So it still doesn't bring me joy. You know what I mean? And so it's got to fit those two things. Does it bring me joy? And do I have a superior skill at it? And starting to clean up kind of like my plate of anything. And if it's not in my genius, I'm like, it's going to be done from, by someone else whose genius that is, to do that. And it's, so it started in that. And from that perspective, and then I'm like, well, I need help, in terms of like my physical space looking clean as well. Let me start decluttering as well. And sometimes you start maybe from the physical space first, perspective, and then you can move into activities. And then, like you said, even into, thoughts. Well, what are some stories that I constantly, keep telling myself that are not, that affect my energy, that affect, how I show up in the world. And so I go from stop doing, lists of, the pure physical space, to stop doing lists of activities, to stop doing lists of like, why do I keep on having these thoughts, and let me see what can either I replace them with or explore them as to, why, we all have, crazy thoughts going up in spite of the accomplishments that we have, of unworthiness, of not deserving, of, whatever you call it, we all have those, and stories that we tell ourselves, or, things that we haven't processed, and, from childhood or whatever. And so it started in that way. And now we do it quarterly, of just cleaning, just kind of like cleaning up. And if you think about it, I always say that my past is about cleaning up those messes. The past is about cleanups. If there's any messes that you see right now in your life, it's because of things that have happened in the past. And then in the present, what can you do? You can clean it up, or you can delegate. It's about delegation. Usually the present for me is about delegating in order to find the support, because when I mean cleanup, sometimes a cleanup, it doesn't have to be by me. I can hire maybe someone to come and, clean up my office for 3 days, and that's it. It's a variable cost. It's not a fixed cost, but just someone. And there's so many resources now, that you women, especially, I feel, Sharon, we can easily justify support in our businesses, but not support at home.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Have
like,
somebody do my laundry? No.
I can totally justify, the return on involvement from a new hire in my business, but not necessarily at home. And so we need the support at home as well. And then the future is about capabilities, things. I'm an ongoing learner. I love to learn stuff. I go out there, learn, I belong to a lot of masterminds, groups, I have mentors as well. And I like, bringing all that knowledge, kind of like back to the nest. Jack and I kind of like divide and conquer, and we do, brain dumps after we come from such an event. And we're life learners. So, so the future is about capabilities, but I think that if you take care of the delegations and the cleaning up of the messes, you're able to have a much more harmonious kind of expansion versus forceful expansion,
I think that's brilliant. I firmly believe that. And it is hard for women as a whole to delegate, and especially personal things, because you say, well, I can do that. Or, maybe I'm in the back of your mind, I'm expected to do that. That's part of my role. And I think sometimes we have to have a talk with ourselves and say, no, that's not really my role.
Yeah, we're completely, I mean, we're probably, I feel like, coming from Honduras, I'm one of the first generation of women where we're completely changing, how, what it is to be a professional woman, and it doesn't involve still having, all the responsibilities of the home, and it involves now, bringing help, of course, you have to be in the financial situation to be able to afford it, but even, I belong to a couple groups of just women only, and constantly the conversations go around, I can easily justify my hire at work, but I cannot justify, and I need help, with somebody picking up my kid from school. I need help with someone doing homework, for them. I need help with laundry. I mean, I met women in these masterminds that are doing 7 figures, Sharon, and they're doing their laundry. And I'm like, do you love it? Because if you don't love it, if it's not a superior skill and you don't love it, why in the world are you doing it? But that's, anyways, it's, I think men in general, don't have those are facts that they don't even worry about, but we do,
They have no problem hiring out the lawn work. None whatsoever.
Absolutely.
Well, yes. I would like to kind of wrap this up by asking you a couple of things. First of all, what do you believe holds women back when it comes to jumping into real estate investing? And what would be your advice for people that are kind of sitting on the fence and kind of taking all this in and going, but I can't, whatever?
Yeah. So what I would say is that I think what I see a lot is that there's a lot of opportunities, Sharon, but I think especially for women, our courage hasn't caught up with the opportunities out there. So I think that's the number one reason why. And what can you do? What would be my first piece of advice was to start somewhere, whether it be investing in education, take an action, do something. Courage loves speed and fear loves time. Fear wants you to be paralyzed, analyzing, waiting for the perfect moment, waiting for you to, be 10 pounds lighter, to have had the promotion, to wait until, my kids start school. Waiting is a freaking trap.
It is a freaking trap, yes.
And so I would say just go, start, do something, get going, even if it's something, simple as starting, education, moving forward, figuring out what's out there when it comes to real estate. And then once you find that one thing that you decide, okay, this is something I can wrap my head around, stick to it. Focus. There's nothing like focus to bring mastery. That repetition, like I said, for me equals a PhD in making money. Once you know something really, really well, you have the confidence then to go and, okay, I got this down. Let me go and start exploring something new or something bigger, something that can add zeros to my income, and so on and so forth.
I love that, adding zeros to my income. Well, Michelle, I absolutely so enjoyed this show, and I love the information that you shared. Where can people reach out to you? Because I know they're going to want to do that.
Yeah. So you can go to michellebosch.com and just check out, there. You can also go on Facebook. You can find me on Michelle Bosch, Instagram, Michelle Bosch Official. We also have a free Facebook group called the Land Profit Generator, because our methodology, for flipping land is called the Land Profit Generator. So you can, it's a free group. It's an incredibly generous community of over, 7,000 people there. Wow. That are generous with their time, with their energy, with their knowledge, and just helping each other, flip some land.
Cool. Go get them, girl. Well, Michelle, once again, thanks so much for coming on the show. It has truly been a pleasure. And for all of my listeners out there, if you like this show, please subscribe and leave a review. We'd love to have a review. We would be greatly appreciated. Well, folks, that's it for today. Once again, thanks to you, Michelle, for coming on the show, and to the listeners, thanks for stopping by. I'll see you same time next week. Bye for now.
Thank you so much. Bye.